It's not vicious or malicious, just lovely and delicious. And delicious. Just lovely and delicious. Just lovely and delicious. Delicious, 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 delicious.
Hello and welcome back to On Ice Perspectives, the show that brings you the skater's point of view. Today is Friday, June 12th, and joining us for episode 14 is the fabulous Ashley Wagner. Hi, Ashley.
Hello! Thank you for having me on your show. I'm so excited to be here.
My pleasure, Ashley. Thank you for joining us, and we have a lot of spectacular stuff in the cards today. So now everyone who's joining us...
I cannot wait to see what you're going to pull out.
Oh, yeah. So for everyone who's joining us, Ashley is... Well, I'll let her introduce herself, but the format of this show is we're going to be watching some of her fabulous skating filmed by me this year through the many times we got to meet, whether she was doing shows or practicing in Boston or traveling in Europe. So without further ado, I'd love it if Ashley could introduce herself to those who may not know her particularly well.
Yeah, of course. So my name is Ashley Wagner. I am a 3-time U.S. national champion, an Olympic bronze medalist in the team event, and a world silver medalist. I competed representing Team USA for at the senior level, over a decade. I recently retired in 2018, and yeah, we've had the pleasure of working together this last year quite a bit. I was just thinking about that. We ran into each other a bunch, so you have a ton of footage of me.
Yeah, I got to put together 5 videos for this show. And by the way, the idea behind this show, everybody, is to kind of share with you the skaters' perspectives. Right? Like, we're going to be watching Ashley as she's training, as she's practicing, as she's rehearsing for shows, and to kind of give you just share with you that awesome feeling as if we were all kind of sitting together watching a skating show almost live together, all as one audience. So that's kind of the idea behind this. And with that said, what's really cool about this show is that you don't have to travel to watch it. We have people watching us now from Turkey, from Wisconsin, from Ukraine, the beautiful Lakes of Shore Huron in Ontario, Ireland, and Canada so far. So that is
Oh my God, everywhere. This is so cool.
So here we go. This is going to be like kind of the start of the show and our skating journey. And with that said, I'd like to start it off with the routine that we posted on Instagram yesterday. This is Ashley practicing to her La La Land routine. When was it in June? I think it was almost a year ago exactly.
It has to be about a year ago at this point, yeah.
All right, so without further ado, let's play the full video. Now, I only posted a minute on Instagram, so this is a little bit longer.
I'm done.
Oh my gosh, that was really cool. Just watching that, knowing that everyone else is watching it too. Bravo. And that rink is so gorgeous. Like everything about that video is...
Oh my God, the natural light in that rink is phenomenal. It's literally got to be your dream come true to have that kind of lighting to film in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So you wrote when you it was kind of, sorry, I have to just mention that typically when we've done this show and we've played these videos, we're always like adding commentary and we're talking over it, but there was something so nice about just watching that without saying anything, like everyone just watching it together.
Yeah.
But tell us.
I love that piece so much. I'm glad that you were able to film it because it's so different from anything that I really competed, and I loved that program so much. It really was one of those pieces that just tugged at my heartstrings, and I felt that even more so after my season ended earlier than I thought it was going to, and getting to at least be able to share it in the way that I truly imagined it, because skating these days, it's all about the jumps. It's very technical, and towards the end of my career, at a certain point, that's just really hard to keep up with. And this program to me was always so much more than the jumps. It was supposed to be about creating a moment, and absolutely jumps can lend to that moment. But that clip didn't even need jumps to hopefully make someone feel something, and that's kind of what I wish skating had more of, because it it's a piece of music that made me feel so much, and because I felt so much, I could make people who are sitting and watching at home feel so much.
I have to say, like, that's something I've always noticed about the way that you skate is it's thrilling. Like, you literally look thrilled to skate and perform, and there's a jump where like the thrill lasts for a microsecond, and then there's just like pure energy, and you can make that last an entire routine.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's really special. It's something else that we'll see in the future in one of the next videos is how you, when you're practicing and you're rehearsing, because I film you at rehearsals most of the time, not during an actual show.
Yeah.
So you will skip the jumps because that's quite normal. But watching you kind of like you're thrilled, and then you like go through the jump, and then it kind of drops completely because you like are removed from it, and then the way that you just snap right back into it is just it's well trained.
It's hard to like take yourself out and then put yourself right back into that headspace, because the jumps are you have to be thinking about so many other things in that moment than taking a second to make people feel things. So sometimes it's nice to just, also for me, at this point, I avoid jumping as much as possible because I don't have to do it anymore. But just to be able to enjoy like the juicy goodness that is figure skating, that's the kind of skating that I love to do most now. And like watching that program, I mentioned this when I posted this on Instagram yesterday, but looking back on my career, this program is truly one of my regrets. And I regret that I didn't believe in it as much as I did. I literally saw La La Land in theaters with Adam. And I remember leaving the theater, and I look at Adam and I'm like, this is my program next year. I loved the story. I loved what it represented. And then I got it choreographed, and it didn't feel strong enough. Because I had been coming off of Moulin Rouge, which was like drama. Before that, I had skated to Muse, which also it's very, it wasn't as dramatic as Moulin Rouge, but it was still very like big booming music. And I got home, and Raph didn't love it at first, and I think I just kind of got into my own head that it wasn't going to be the right vehicle for my Olympic season. And after my Grand Prix season, it had been a disaster of a season, and it was because I was skating to a program that I was tired of, that I was just so burnt out by. I went back to the drawing board, decided to go back to this program, and actually Shaylin, my choreographer, her husband works in music, and I asked him to bump up the music a little bit, so that version that we hear isn't the exact version that's on the soundtrack. He added a lot of extra sound so that I could feel like it was big enough, and he matched it so well. Everything sounds like it was meant to be there, and I wish I had trusted this program, because I think it actually was so capable of creating that moment that I was chasing after my entire season.
Wow, that's so much. Like you mentioned, I got to meet Shaylin's husband, who is like, he's a cinematographer as well, and there is something so cinematic about this routine. Like, it's not just I've heard people say like, where can I find the mix of this song? And I never really thought about it. Like, that's not the soundtrack that you hear in the movie, but it's
not.
Yeah.
He literally built up so much to this music. There's drums in the background, there's percussion, there's cymbals, there's everything else going on to make it just sound that much bigger.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And speaking of like getting to like regrets and not getting to use it enough, did you feel like, so when I filmed you last June, you were preparing for, I think it was your first professional competition?
Yeah. I was preparing for a professional competition later on in the summer, and played around with programs that would be, I competed a short program and a long program. And so I was just trying to kind of like keep myself together enough to be able to get through a long program in August.
I was going to ask if that scratched an itch at all, like doing that. For those that don't know, what we consider the kind of competitive skaters you see on television, they're not technically professional skaters. We call them amateur skaters. It has to do with the way sports are represented at the Olympics. But when you retire, like you often hear a skater saying, "I'm retiring," but they're actually retiring from amateur competition. There's still the whole professional field, and it used to be really, really popular. Like professional skating competitions used to be so big. Not so much anymore.
Yeah.
But they're still there. There's still an outlet for ex-amateur skaters.
Yeah. There's not too many. This was the first pro competition in a while. They're trying to, I think, test it out and see how it went. I had no itch to scratch to begin with. Competing for 23 years, honestly, by the time I got to the end of my career, I was so exhausted. I had been one of Team USA's top senior ladies for over a decade. And I carried the weight on my shoulders, and I saw so many girls come and go, and I was like the one who maybe wasn't always the brightest, but I was consistently there. So I dealt with that pressure for years. So I'm one of the lucky few that by the time I retired, I had gotten to do everything I wanted to do, and I really got to feel like, okay, I am ready to be done. So when I went back on the ice for this 6-minute warm-up at this pro event, I'm out there and I just feel so convinced that I'm happily retired. I'm looking around, I'm nervous, I'm terrified, I feel sick to my stomach, and then that's when I realized, I'm good, I'm happy, I don't need this anymore.
So
it was a nice reminder to feel what I put myself through for 23 years.
I think every skater at some point wonders, like, what would it feel like to go back to competition, like for a brief period of time.
Totally.
You got to try it. I could ask you like what made you decide to do it, but sometimes you just.
I mean, it probably is that, like, well, I wonder if maybe I just needed a break. I think genuinely, unless you're superhuman, as soon as you take that break and that step away from skating and you start to live your real life, going back into the skating world, you realize just how crazy it is to stand in the middle of the ice with thousands of people watching you. So it was one of the more terrifying moments of my life. I thought I was going to skate right through that and feel completely fine. And I got out there and I just felt like a deer in headlights because you kind of forget how intensely crazy competing on the international stage is.
Yeah, there are a couple skaters I've met who like retired or took a full season long break, and they come back into it, and they really, that you are so superhuman to get through that, especially at an older age. I mean, I always like.
Absolutely. Yeah. I know. Seriously.
Well, with that said, I think it's time we go to our next video. Speaking of like post-competition, doing shows, the first time I got to see you last year was at Stars on Ice during the rehearsals for the show down in Fort Myers, Florida.
Myers, yes.
And it was you guys were there for almost a week. The first show was there on Sunday, and you arrive and you've got to build this show from scratch under the watchful eye of Jeff Buttle, I think, was doing all the group numbers.
Yep, yeah.
And the camaraderie and everything of you guys, like, it's the end of the competitive season. It's all in April. The show runs through May. And I wanted to just play this clip of you and Maddie Hubble doing your duet to the 90s group number. But before we start, I wanted to know, do you and Maddie, I know like everyone loves to put names of skaters together. Do you and Maddie have a couple's name?
Oh, I don't know. We didn't think about that. I'll need to ask her.
Yeah, I
I
think.
mean, Madash.
Yeah.
About it, but
Well, while we watch this, I think it'll come to people's mind. And also, I just want to say we have someone watching from Brazil as well and Scotland. This is
oh, cool. Welcome to the show.
all right. So we can provide our commentary over this if you want, but
Yeah, I loved this. It was so much fun. I got to have this little moment, and it was just, for me, anytime I could interact with the crowd, I mean, Jeff literally was like, I want you to walk up to someone sitting on the ice and like, make them feel like they have to get out and dance with you. But it was fun because it's just like movement that in skating we don't do. It's very sharp and rigid. And then I got to do this pair girl. This was always treacherous. We felt like we were going to fall down every day. We eventually ended up doing a weird like lift. Maddie supported me. I could never get these arms right ever. It moved so fast. This part also was like a moment of sheer terror. The first night when we were trying to do this, lights are on, it's go time. Jeff choreographed it so quickly. But it was cool just because, like, I think female figure skaters, you traditionally see them as very feminine and soft. And this is the kind of skating and movement that I'm so much more interested in. I like to watch someone who is moving in a very strong way, who is unapologetically sexy, and there's like some kind of masculine energy to that. So this piece was just so fun. I loved it. The costumes for it were amazing. We were kind of like the Spice Girls. It was my dream come true. I stole the top from production after the show. I took it home with me. It was like a little butterfly crop top. So if you're watching, sorry.
I have to say, Kayla Jones came up with this name. Let me place it right here. Mashley.
Mashley. But is that fair when my full name is in it? I don't know. Is that cheating?
Well, maybe. We'll see.
Maybe. Mashley.
Yeah.
I'll take it. You know what? Madison's pretty chill, so
Yeah.
I'm sure she's cool with it.
So yeah, I wanted to ask you so that I've always noticed that you have a really natural flow for hip hop. Is there a history there for you?
Oh.
No?
No.
It just comes from here.
This was really hard for me. This was so hard for me. My kind of skating, I can do like flirty, I can do slinky, I can do jazzy, but the second you asked me to do hip hop, I was so pumped to get this opportunity because it was just gonna push me. Thank you for thinking I look natural at it. Like literally all the alarm bells are going off in my head because I'm like, you're not doing this right, but just kind of fake it till you make it. Yeah, there's no history whatsoever. I wish I was that cool. I'm not.
Well, I think so eventually I'm going to combine and post the entire, I think it was like an at least 8-minute group number in that show.
It's a long group number. That was so fun to skate every night.
Yeah, I mean, when I finally finish putting that together, everyone will have to be the judge. But yeah, I mean, what you said, like jazzy, flowy, sexy at the same time. Like I think you definitely have like a flow to your dancing, and it's always real. And I probably all the alarm bells going off in your head is just you like trying to push every last bit out of it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, for me, if I'm going to do something, I do it at level 100. So
Exactly. Yeah.
When I was working with Adam and he was choreographing one of my programs, he always said to me, can you do that, but just like less? And that's usually what I have to do is like reel myself in because I'll go full force right away.
Okay, so On to, well, let me see if we have any. If anyone has any questions, by the way, this is a live stream, so I see your comments. If you want to throw something up, I have a few questions that we got from the IG story for those of you that are tuning in. But we'll kind of talk more about them near the end of the show. So now we're going to move on to the number that you gave me a story in person a long time ago. It was to Pink's I Am Here. Mm-hmm. And you told me about the message of this routine, how it came to you after the Olympics or during it, and I just wanted to hear it through your words, like what that song meant to you before we watch it together.
Yeah, so this program for me, it was after U.S. Nationals in 2018 when I wasn't named to the team. And I was in such a weird place because I knew I was only going to compete one more time. I was going to be done after that Olympics. But just the way that everything went down, I felt so uncertain about so many things, and I wasn't in a good place. I mean, in my mind, I was prepared to go to that Olympics, and it didn't work out for the reasons it didn't work out. But I just needed something. I mean, every single person that talked to me, came up to me, they just looked at me like they felt so sorry for me. And I just kind of got to this point where I was tired of that, and I just wanted people to understand that I'm okay. And I talked to Shay about this, and we found this piece of music by Pink called I Am Here, and it's really about just kind of having been through it, like going through the worst of the worst. You know what rock bottom looks like, but you're okay. You're going to be fine. You're going to be able to push through because you're here. That's what you're going to do. And so it was kind of my way of taking back my sad story and empowering myself, because everything in life happens for a reason, and maybe I wasn't meant to go compete at that Olympics, and that's just my story. And so to be able to create this program and have it be an outlet for me, it was really important just to have that, and it really helped me kind of get through the couple of months where I was on tour with Stars on Ice with the Olympic team. So that's kind of the story of how this came to be.
I mean, I think you had the reaction to that routine, like I only really got to watch it at the shows, at the rehearsals, but like it's such a powerful number, and it's great to see. I feel like it takes on even more meaning the longer it's been since then, because now, like they say, after the Olympics or after you hit the top, like every athlete has a half-life, and it's like every month that passes, your popularity, your mind in people's eyes decreases, but every time you come out with this program, it's like it brings it back up again, because it's just such a powerful program, and where it came from and the story behind it, like that is just really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I got to choose, do I want to show the one from Stars on Ice in 2019, or because I didn't quite get it in 2018, or the one we filmed in Madrid at Revolution on Ice. So I chose that one because it just felt like the best representation. I was also just better at filming by then.
Nice.
And
all right, let's take a look.
So this is where I'll mention. Go on.
No, I when Shay was choreographing this, to me it was really important that it was vulnerable and visibly raw, and so that's where, I mean, typically there's like a little knee slide here, and I just wanted to be able to feel like I had something where I could reach into the audience and just like pull you into my experience and feel what I was going through on Stars on Ice. this program would make me cry every single night. This is that moment where it's just like you're really pushing through the mud and fighting for people to care. Know that you're okay and you're still there. And it's soulful. There's a lot of soul that goes into this piece, and it was really cathartic skating it. But also, anytime you get anything choreographed by Shaylin, every single one of our programs are so hard. It's a mad dash to the end. It's a sprint all the way through. So I always finish this program completely tanked. Which is why also, especially here, because we have like a whole day of rehearsals, the show to go through, you get like little bits and pieces of it because it just takes so much energy to skate this. And it's hard for me to like do something halfway emotionally. So it really pulls it out of me.
Yeah, that's I was gonna I mentioned it earlier. Like, you're either on or you're off. But when you're on, you're on. It's like you snap like a light switch, even when you're rehearsing.
Yeah, and I think that's why, like for me, because when I turn it on, it truly is me and my emotions, and it takes so much out of me to perform because I am giving you 100% of what I have to give. So I have to be a little bit sensitive to when I turn it on because I have to save something for when the world needs to see it, you know? Otherwise, I become a zombie because I've used up all of my energy, all of my emotions, because I leave everything out on the ice. At least that's my goal every single time I skate, to make people feel like I didn't leave a single thing out there.
And normally this would be
This rink was also so full.
insane.
This was a old bullfighting arena.
It was just a massive circle, and the next 2 nights we had, it was sold out shows. I mean, I cannot stop talking enough about how awesome that show was.
Oh my god, it was so cool. Just to see what Javi Fernandez created in Spain. I mean, to have that kind of a following, it was the coolest audience I'd ever performed in front of. I felt like a rock star. Both nights, I think that arena held 16,000 people, and it was packed every single night. And I mean, that was because of Javi. Like, Javi did that in Spain, which is just amazing. And they were such an appreciative audience. And for me, when I'm performing, like, the more the audience gives me, I throw it right back at them. That fuels me. So to have an audience that is that alive, oh my god, I loved it. I ate it up every single night. You get off the ice and you're just buzzing because of the energy out there.
Yeah, I can't wait. I hope they get to have another show in Spain soon. Speaking of like throwing it back, speaking of throwing it back to the audience, I wanted to share some of the comments that we've had. A few people have asked questions, like mostly skating related, and then I'm going to read some of the questions from the Instagram story. So there are a lot of them, so feel free to take as much or as little time as you want. And then when we're done with that, we're going to finish with this one last program that I filmed back in Stars. So with that said, number one, how long have you been skating for?
So at this point, about 24 years, and I competed on the senior circuit internationally for about 11.
Wow, yeah. Your entire life, that's incredible. I mean,
yeah, it's me.
Yeah.
This is what I've created. I worked hard for it. I think having spent that much time on the ice has been really cool. It's given me so many amazing life experiences, and now after kind of hanging up my skates, it's like figuring out what else there is after skating.
Yeah, that was one of I got a couple of questions like that. Like, how did it work transitioning from like a full-time competitive career to life afterwards? Do you feel like you've adjusted yet, or is there still like more to do in that regard?
I think it takes years. I talked to Meryl Davis about this, and it was years later before I think she felt like she really had a grip on it. And I would say I'm about 2 years out now, and I had to mourn my career, which is a weird thing because you don't realize that you're going to miss it because I was so tired of it, but then I didn't have it anymore. And so it's this really strange thing. And I think that's why it takes a while to process just the end of something that has become a part of your identity. Like, this literally is part of my like DNA makeup of who I am because I've been doing it for that long. So I think it took a lot of patience. I knew it was going to take time just from all the retired athletes I had talked to, so I was okay with that. And then I said yes to every single opportunity that came my way because you just don't know what you like. Because for me, I hadn't had a chance to experience anything else. So I said yes to everything, and then got myself in school because I decided I wanted to eventually work to become a practicing psychologist. And so I think I took the time to figure out what direction I really wanted to steer myself in, and then I took my like Olympic level, elite athlete level of craziness, and I've been channeling it into that.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of which, not speaking of which, this is just another question that a lot of people ask, because it's great to hear like how, what, like you said, like saying yes to everything and figuring out what you need to do when your career is over. But during your career, another question that a lot of people ask is, what were some of the things that you did to afford being able to train and compete at the same time? Because everyone's story is different, but interested.
Absolutely. So for me, because I was one of Team USA's top competitors, I was lucky enough to get a lot of funding that would help out my career. So eventually I got to a certain level, and that helped me out a lot. And that's the kind of crazy thing about skating. You don't really get help until you're good enough to be able to make up for your own bills, and then all of a sudden you're getting help. I performed in shows. So summertime is where I would make a lot of my financial cushion to be able to afford lessons with RAF later in the year. So it's kind of like you compete all season, you fingers crossed, you get those prize pockets, and then in the summer performing in shows, sponsorship deals, things like that, working, Olympic season, I worked probably too hard, and that was why I think I showed up at Nationals not as prepared as I needed to be, but to be able to kind of make ends meet in skating, it's a lot of extra work on the side, traveling a lot, performing in shows, making sure you kind of squeeze every opportunity out that you possibly can.
Yeah. Speaking of shows, I think about that a lot these days, because this is, besides like not being able, for skaters like at the top level who weren't able to go to Worlds, this is the time of year that they would have been pretty much wrapping up 2.5 straight months of shows. And I think about it a lot, how much skating is like, it's so reliant on people showing up in person and watching skating shows. And, I think about it a lot, like what, there are alternatives on the horizon, but for the most part, like getting people in those seats to feel and watch skating in person, like I really hope that next year every skater gets to do a show, because there'll just be such a high demand for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully. It's tough being in the business of large groups over 50.
Yeah.
That's really, we've taken a hard hit in that respect. But also I think that, in a lot of senses for athletes, now is a great time to realize you can't just rely on this forever, because like you said, athletes do have a shelf life. So for me, it's really pushed me to make sure that I set myself up for an education so that I have other opportunities in life beyond just the rink. And I think you'll see a lot of that from athletes who, I mean, we're savvy. You have to pivot under pressure.
Mm-hmm. So you said that you were going into school for psychology?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, this goes great with a question we actually got during the broadcast from Elizabeth. How do you control your nerves when you're competing? I hope that's a psychology question. I'm not just like...
No, it works. We can absolutely take a psychological spin out of this. Well, for me, I think it was always... I get asked this question a lot. It's important to know that I always felt nervous. I think a lot of people want to not feel nervous. I always felt those nerves. I was such a nervous competitor. Before I got on the ice, I would feel sick to my stomach. I wouldn't be able to eat all day because I would be genuinely terrified of what I was about to go do. But the way that I controlled them, like this question asks, I trusted in my training. I felt my most competent and capable when I knew I had put the work in during training to be able to just, to the best of my abilities, turn off my mind and let my body do the work. If I know that I can get through a long program in one piece, that gave me some sense of comfort when I was out there under pressure. And I would also write everything down. I would write down my run-throughs and what I did in that day so that if I ever felt like I was feeling a little insecure before I went into an event, I could pull out this book, look at what I had accomplished in the last month alone, and then just kind of remind myself, all right, you put the work in, you're ready. You just have to get out of your own way.
Nice. Samantha asks, when will Ashley's podcast come out?
Oh my God, it has been such a saga. I am so frustrated with this whole entire process. I have linked up with a sound person who is helping me out, and then as soon as I got that started, this last month alone has been huge for humanity, and it's one of those things where I want to put this podcast out, but especially right now, I want it to be done in a way that is thoughtful and providing something that people need to hear. And right now, my voice, my story is not the story that people need to be focusing on. So I think when the time feels right at this point is when it's going to come out. Everything's good to go, but I think I'm going to leave some room right now for voices other than my own.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I feel you there. So, here's a quick one. Are there any places or countries in the world that you would like to visit? And I always think of this question too, like if we could just go somewhere right now, if the travel ban was lifted, if the pandemic was over and it was gone.
Right, where are we going?
Where are we going, yeah.
For me, I was supposed to go to Iceland this summer. That isn't happening, and it's fine, but that is pretty much on my number one to go list. That and New Zealand. So I've the list goes on, but those are probably the top two.
Here's a skating question. Do you find it hard to train as a lefty in a skating world of predominantly righties?
Yes, because righties are privileged and they don't look out for lefties. They're used to everybody going the same way. No, I mean, I joke, but I've just learned as a lefty to be more aggressive and be a smarter skater. So since I am the one who's always in the way. I'm the problem child out on the ice. So it made me really conscious of where I am on the ice, and I always made sure that I was staying out of people's way. But also it made me kind of look at the skating patterns and see where people were going to go. So my job was to find a space on the ice before it actually opened up. So you just have to be a little bit more savvy. It's really hard to train with righties, though, because righties aren't looking out for you. It's fine, though.
I have to say, whenever I film you, there's a part of me that like has to switch and go, oh yeah, right, she goes to the left, and like all of my, I've been doing it long enough that I have like habits for setting up a jump, and
Right,
for
you
you, for you, I'm like, oh shoot, I ended up too close. I'm like right in her path.
It's all right. It's all right. Don't worry. I've never noticed, so.
So this is kind of a combination of a question that I got on Instagram Live, and then also someone here, she's from Turkey, Lal Soner. She says she's 13 years old and she's working on her triple flip, and she would love to have any tips. And that's kind of combined with the question from Instagram I got, where like, how did you go from double to triple jumps, and how did it feel when you first landed one? I'll put in question up here.
So for my doubles and triples, I got my double axel and triple sow on the warm up at regionals. And so it was quite a shock to land my first triple. It was an absolute accident. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure no one's done that before. I came back to the boards and my coach was just like, she like didn't know what to say to me because she didn't want to like make a big deal and get in my head. But then once I got my triples, I actually lost all my doubles. I have not been able to do doubles independently since I got my triples. My most treacherous combination in competition is a double axel, double toe, because I just genuinely don't feel capable of doing the double toe. I have to do it with my arms over my head, otherwise I over-rotate it. It's a mess. But I would say for flips, I really like flips. One thing I noticed, because I teach a lot of kids these days, at least American skating is traditionally taught so square, and that to me is just not the most efficient way of doing these jumps. So putting yourself a little bit more on a curve, watching skaters like Nathan, Yuzu, Shoma, any of the fantastic Russian women, like there are so many great examples of skating on a much more circular pattern that I think is just better for efficiency. And flips can be kind of awkward. You can feel kind of stuck, but if you put yourself a little bit more on a curve, it's a lot more organic and you'll rotate quicker.
Good advice. Yeah, using the curve, like I've thought about it a lot from a physics aspect, and the idea of jumping on a curve, like you're essentially, it's like doing a 3-turn that you just skid right out of. I mean, I know flip's a different jump. All right, I have a dice sensor.
Yeah, I mean, you're sending your momentum in the direction that it wants to go in to begin with, so you're just making it a little bit more natural to what the rotation wants from you.
I saw a good one here. Oh, well, yeah, Marcy Hanners says, this is the season of pivot. What do you think will be next for you? Do you have a vision for your direction, or are you just open to possibilities and waiting to see what happens? I know you said that was the pivot really happened a lot right after nationals and the Olympics, and you were like, yes to everything.
It's been a lot of pivoting throughout this entire process, because I got out of skating and didn't know what I wanted, but then I would try something and get a little bit into it and then realize, no, I don't like that. And I guess it's kind of tough because I have to discover what I'm into on a much more public stage. So I started writing and blogging, and I love writing, but I don't love writing about like my 5 favorite skincare products. That just doesn't hit home for me. I'm not interested in that, and so I kind of pulled back from that because it just didn't feel genuine to what I cared about. And you know, for me, I would say definitely getting into psychology or practicing some kind of therapy, not sports psychology. I want to stay so far away from athletes. Everyone's crazy. I was a crazy athlete for years. I don't need to get back into that neurotic sense of self. But we'll see. For the most part, it's just kind of saying yes to everything.
Yeah, just curious. That just triggered something in my head. So when I go on my Instagram page, like it knows what I like. It's like new cameras all the time. So that's kind of what, I don't know if that's a cause or result, but I'm always looking into, like, that's my way of moving forward. I've been not able to skate or film for a while, but I've been heavily investing in new ways that I want to film and just kind of watching what I do.
Yeah.
When you open up Instagram, like, what does Instagram think you're into? What do you like? What do you spend your free time browsing? Cat videos? Okay. And you have a cat, right?
I'm not proud of it. It's a lot of cat videos.
Here's one right behind me. She's sunbathing in the sun.
I know. She's having a grand time. That's a good cat life. It's a lot of cat videos. It's a lot of home improvement projects because I bought a house last year and I'm fixing it up.
Congratulations.
And, thank you. But yeah, it's genuinely mostly cat videos.
Yeah, actually,
which I guess means I'm officially a cat lady.
I saw this question. Someone asked, why does your cat not have a tail? No, is that right? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So I get asked this question every single time I post a video of him, and it's okay. I will keep on answering this question, but I get asked this question like I cut off his tail, and I did not.
What?
Like I get accused of cutting off his tail. So he is part bobcat. He's like a couple generations down bobcat. So he has a little bobcat tail that he was born with. He was born with a little nub. I did not cut off his tail. I think he's perfect the way he is. If he had a tail, he could keep it. But yeah. It's funny because he just he wags his little nub like a cat would.
Oh. That seems like such a silly. Okay, I was wondering. I'm like, is it because it's a rescue? Was there a story behind it? Nope, it was just born that way.
He was born that way.
Guys, you gotta stop. Like, you can't do that.
I know. I love my animals. Why did you do this to him?
So a couple of questions regarding other skaters for you. Like, what are some of the skaters that you admire the most, past, present, and future? As in, like, who do you think is gonna? People want to know your predictions.
I think Kosternaya is going to be Olympic champion. I truly do. I love everything about her. I think that she has room to grow, but for where she is right now, she's already so phenomenal. And watching her, I love how she moves. I love her jumps. I love her triple axel. I could literally just fangirl over her until the end of time. I think she's phenomenal. But also, Carolina, obviously, anyone who can make their long limbs look like they go on forever. She was one of my favorites. And Satoko. I truly love Satoko's skating so much. Even when I was competing against her, and I'm so competitive, I could still take a step back and be like, that girl is really good. Her skating's beautiful. So as far as the women go, those are some of my favorites. And just classics like Katarina Witt, Michelle Kwan. And then for the men, Nathan and Yuzu, I'm not even going down this road. I'm not getting any kind of hate mail. I really appreciate them both for how talented they are in their own separate at me. I love Shoma endlessly. So yeah, those are some of my favorites.
Yeah, I think what people don't really get in this inside of the skating world, I don't think people have the same kind of rivalries that people outside of people who aren't skaters or skating fans do. but it's kind of cool to
Yeah.
see,
Absolutely.
like whenever I see it, I go like, well, you know, if football has like hardcore fans, like who'll fight each other for it, so cool, then that's could be worse.
Bring it on!
Yeah.
These games hardcore!
I'll fight you.
Yeah, it's cool to see how passionate the fans can get. Sometimes it's a little bit intimidating and it can make it a little scary to interact with fan bases. But I think, like, amongst the skaters, to your point, there's not that kind of intense rivalry, especially with Nathan and Yuzu. I think between the two of them, it's so respectful, and I love watching them interact with each other because they are so appreciative of what they do for each other. They're always pushing each other so far, and because they push each other, it brings the sport from here to here to here to here. So
Yeah.
it's amazing to see what they do for the sport together.
They really are. They're fantastic ambassadors for the sport, and the way that they show everyone that they can like support each other, and yeah, like really encourage the other one to do the best that they can do. And the things that they've said about each other are just like, they blow my mind sometimes, because it's like, that is good sportsmanship. Way to go! Like, hold the trophy for.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, totally.
Well, with that said, I think it's time that we played our last skating video. It's another one from the Stars on Ice tour in 2019.
Throwback. Whoa.
Yeah. Wow, I know. I wish I could have been around to like filming in those days, but I was still competing. So this was Dark Days by is it Florence and the Machine? Did I get that right?
Dog Days. It's by Florence and the Machine.
Dog Days.
Dog Days are over.
Yeah, like Dark Days are over. Freudian slip. I wanted to play this one last just because I think the dress is, your costume is fabulous. Costume, dress, outfit.
Thank you.
It's gorgeous, and it just seemed like the right video to take us out. So we'll see you guys when it's done, but I'm just going to play it for us right here.
Oh no, what I'm yelling about.
Three-time United States champion, world silver medalist, Olympic bronze medalist, Ashley Wagner.
This was actually put together by one of my dear friends in the sport, Elliot Halverson. And we got to work together and just create something dreamy. I wanted it to feel like it floated in. And he took that and just created something so whimsical.
I love how I'm like, I didn't really know where you were going or what was going to happen next, so I'm just getting out of the way however I can.
Honestly, though, I probably didn't either. This program was so new.
I love how you can just like activate
I
that.
was running at you though, and I wasn't sure if I was gonna hit you or not.
I couldn't tell. Like, I watched that now and I go, man, she like really just went for it. Like I wasn't even there.
Told you, I commit.
I try to like stay out of the spotlight. So A, my shadow doesn't get seen on the ice, but two, so you can't see me.
This is cool though. I don't think I ever got to see this video. It's great. The dress looks amazing. You're right.
Yeah, I honestly didn't watch this until I was preparing for this live show. Oh, that's like when I caught that kick.
Yeah. I had to stretch for this program.
Whoop.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's.
I gotta remember that
Spiral.
this.
I remember the spiral too.
I gotta remember
Yeah.
we don't have a full-size rink.
It's tiny and stuff. So I also learned on a full-size rink, so I'm trying to make it smaller at the same time. One night on tour, I did this and I fell right on my butt. I stopped and just kept going.
Right at the end.
Yeah, right at the end. It went, Papa, and I fell on my butt.
Yeah, I think the nice thing about
Okay.
filming at that show was that I wasn't too afraid about getting cut off because I could always just run off the ice. At Revolution on Ice, it was like concrete, so
Right.
over like a $10,000
there's nowhere for
LED
you to
screen. Oh,
Yes.
I miss like going through all of this
Oh my
stuff.
God.
Like I just watch it and I miss shows. I miss skating so much. It's like as soon as I like start to
Yeah.
forget it and get over it, I start looking at another video and I'm just like, oh, we're gonna get through this. We're gonna get through it, and we'll still be here.
Absolutely. But I think it's so cool that in the meantime, you're putting stuff like this out so we can kind of still experience it in a much more intimate way. Because you don't often get to hear why a skater is doing what they're doing. So I think this is a cool perspective too.
Thank you. I know. I think about it as like, you do a show, you do a competition, and then they interview afterwards. But it's always about like how you did, like what it means. But I'm
Yeah.
trying to like get before that and just like we have your soul, like literally your live soul is here with us on the show, and then we still get to watch skating, and we're watching it with everybody at the same time. So I'm trying to like scratch that itch right now, basically.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
Well, I think it's time to say thank you to everybody who's joined us for this live show, and especially thank you to you, Ashley, for being here and sharing your perspective with us. And I also have to thank
No problem. Always happy to.
I also have to thank Javier Fernandez's show, Revolution on Ice, for having me there, as well as Stars on Ice, the Skating Club of Boston, which it was you who let us film there. I mean, I look back at that session, I'm like, oh my God, it was so crowded, but it really wasn't.
Yeah.
And also to thank the Patreons of On Ice Perspectives who have supported me through this whole pandemic and literally made it possible for me to just tinker with show ideas and put something like this together. I'm going to keep working on it. I plan to do this somewhat weekly for a whole year and see what happens. So like take us through the pandemic, through on, and maybe someday we'll be doing this, but we'll be live on the ice. I'll be behind the camera, you'll be in front of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so just to bring skating to everyone who hasn't been able to have any for a while. So thank you everybody who joined us. I think someone said they were from Morocco, which like I haven't heard that one yet. So like people from all over the world watching this live stream with us. Thank you guys. I hope you all get to make it to a show and see Ashley skate. There was someone from Japan who was like saying, I can't wait to see you, Ashley, performing in Japan next year. So
Yes, next year.
that said, thank you everybody for watching, and I will see you guys for our next show sometime next week. Might be Tuesday, might be Friday, but the idea is that I might be traveling next week, so we'll see if we can take the show on the road. Thanks, Ashley. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.